Greetings, Sus. It is I, Tactical Girlfriend. Welcome back to the channel. I hope everybody's doing well. Today, I want to talk about footwork, and specifically some drills that you can try out to work on the fundamentals of your footwork. Now, there's a lot more sophisticated ways to try out different things and concepts to refine your footwork, but I found that these drills have been really good for going back to basics and just really dialing in my footwork. So hopefully these are helpful for you. Hopefully it's some good food for thought and gets you thinking on your feet. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now first, before we dive into the drills themselves, let me just talk about some basic concepts of what we're even trying to work on here and what good footwork is, and some tips and tricks to get yourself there. First of all, when I'm talking about footwork here in this context, I'm talking about moving and shooting simultaneously. Your feet are moving, you're going in some direction across the ground, and you're pulling a trigger at the same time while maintaining a steady sight picture as best as you can. Now, as far as how you get there, generally, in my experience, keeping your knees bent is a good start. Get your body relaxed, don't be stiff and jerky and rigid. Otherwise, you're gonna more easily disrupt your sight picture. Plus, having bent knees is generally just gonna help you be more dynamic. You're gonna be able to jump out of a position and sprint or slow down really quickly if you need to in your course of fire. Furthermore, lowering your center of gravity while your knees are bent might give you a more stable position to move from as well as shoot from. And again, that's gonna really help you have a more dynamic movement instead of a sudden jerky one. And I need to work a lot more on this myself. I still tend to just barely bend my knees when I'm standing and shooting. Could really try to just lower that center of gravity, get a more aggressive stance. I've seen a lot of really good shooters shoot that way, and I've experimented with it myself. It's just a habit that you gotta build. Now, as far as people trying to game this whole thing and timing their shots, depending on where their feet are in relation to each other, and timing it when they're at the height of their step or the bottom of their step when they hit the ground, all that stuff, just forget it. That's not how we get there. A lot of people really think that there's some way to coordinate both your leg movement and your shooting, and that's just not how it works. We want to be able to actually land shots on target in any given position at any given time at any kind of movement that we're doing. That's ultimately what we're trying to accomplish here, so don't stunt yourself and try to just time your shots depending on your feet, because ultimately what we're trying to do is get ourselves thinking about shooting and not about moving. The movement should be subconscious, your legs should be moving independently of your torso, and that should become more subconscious, and therefore it will free you up to focus on shooting and nothing else. Now, as far as refining your footwork goes, there's one very simple thing that you can do right at home, right now. If you have a water bottle or a glass of water, all you need to do is just make sure it's got water in it and use this as a level. This is going to be an indicator of how jerky your movement is, and hopefully you can just smooth things out by doing this exercise. It's very simple. Start trying to move back and forth while holding this water as steady as you can without splashing it. Move side to side, and if you are feeling really good about it, you can speed it up, but work at your pace. But what you're trying to do here is simply keep that water as level as possible as you move your feet around in various directions. That will be a really good indicator of where you are. It's a great way to get yourself thinking about moving more level and steadily, and it's very easy to do. Try it out. Also, when you are working on all this stuff, maintaining target focus is extremely important. I harp on this all the time. Target focus is very, very necessary in shooting well, in my opinion, and it definitely translates into footwork as well. A lot of people don't think about it, but when you are focused on your optic reticle, for example, you might have a tendency while you're moving to drag your shots. And that's because you're focused on the reticle, you're not focused on the target itself. You're gonna get lazy, you're gonna see the target in the background blurry, you're gonna think that you're getting your shots where you want them, but if you're moving, you're gonna have a tendency to drag your shots left and right. If you're target focused, you're gonna be more naturally pointed towards the target, and you're going to maintain that. That's gonna be extremely important because we want ourselves instinctually oriented towards the target and not letting our gun dictate where our body is going. I hope that makes sense. These are all just very basic concepts, but they're also very essential for what we're about to get into. Next, let's talk about what we need for these drills. It's not very much. First of all, you need a shot timer, you need 2 targets of your choice, and a spare target stand as well, and something to create a visual dividing line on the ground for you. It could be tape, it could be string, it could be a stick. It doesn't really matter as long as you can see it on the ground. That's all you really need. Now, these are simple baby steps. These drills are not very advanced. They're designed to be very short because we're just trying to get easily repeatable results so that we can analyze what we're doing and just work on those bare fundamentals. These are things to get you just thinking about what you can refine as far as your footwork goes, and you can just keep hammering away at them and hopefully get a lot out of one session. You are just trying to work on simple movement and sight tracking fundamentals here. That's it. And you should definitely try this stuff in dry fire. In fact, you probably should mostly do this in dry fire because it's very easy. As long as you have the floor space to do it, which isn't very much that's required, it should be very, very attainable. Furthermore, you can take this to the range, try it out, definitely try it out at the range if you can, but even if you can't, dry fire will get you mostly there at least. Now let's get into the first set of drills here, which are going to require that visual dividing line that we're talking about. First and foremost, set up 2 targets in line with each other, and the distance is subjective to you. Depending on how good you are with target transitions, you can set them very close if you're not very comfortable with target transitions, or you can set them very far apart if you're really an ace with target transitions. Again, this is subjective to you, so find out what's comfy and move back, engage them from a range that is, again, comfortable for you. And right between those 2 targets, you're going to set your dividing line. In this case, I'll put a stick on the ground right between those 2 targets at the range I want to engage them from. Now, when you're all set up for this drill, all you're going to do is stand on one side of that dividing line, in this case a stick, and you're going to start your shot timer. Have your gun at low ready, and at the beep, you're going to engage the first target on your side with 2 shots, and then you're going to transition over to the second target, firing 4 shots into that one, and then back to the original target with 2 more shots, so 4 shots on each. Now, the trick here is as soon as you hear the beep, at some point you're going to want to start walking over that dividing line so that you're just simply ending on the other side of it. When you start doing this is completely dependent on your comfort. I found that where I'm at, I don't feel that comfortable starting moving right as I hear the beep. I generally wait till I start engaging the second target to start actually walking over, allowing me to move while just focused on that one target, so I'm not also doing target transitions while I'm moving. Once you really master this though, you're probably going to want to actually start moving as soon as you hear that beep so that you're transitioning targets while moving. Hopefully that makes sense. Now it's probably obvious, but you should definitely be alternating sides as you're doing this drill. Try to mirror it because people do tend to shoot better moving one way or another. It just has a lot to do with your own shooting habits, your physiology, what side your dominant hand is on, everything. So definitely make sure that you're isolating everything here and trying to hammer through it, identify what needs work, treat every case as a unique case. Left to right does not mean the same as right to left for you. And you're going to want to, again, just try to get to the point where you're getting this stuff down as an instinctual movement. You're not trying to think too much about your footwork, but here we're trying to actually focus on it and really perfect it. And again, as you can see here, I generally try to just start moving as I'm engaging that second target. I try to isolate my movement while not introducing that target transition. The target transition is still really important here, but if you're really struggling with this, take out one of those targets. Just focus on engaging one target while moving. But yeah, generally I'm at the point where I'm kind of isolating my shots between the 4th and 6th shots while moving, and everything else is just standing still. But I definitely have goals in mind. I have things I want to work up in, and I got room to grow in this really simple drill. Now the key here is to move at a pacing gait that doesn't disrupt your sight picture through this course of fire. The smoother we can get our movement, the steadier we can get our sight picture, and the more available we will be to engage targets no matter where our feet are. That's kind of where we want to get. Also, with regards to technique, moving side to side is its own thing. It's not easy, especially when you're moving and shooting. A lot of people advocate bringing your feet together and apart like this. But as you can see, when I do that, I definitely bob up and down. That is not going to help me at all here. We want a very steady sight picture, and what we ultimately want to do is cross our legs. Don't be afraid to cross your legs over each other and just roll slowly and naturally. Don't overthink it. Just try to find out what works best for you and keeps a steady sight picture. Yes, moving your feet side to side in line with each other and not crossing them over each other is safer. And if you're just starting out, yeah, you probably should just stick with that, but you're not going to be able to really shoot as you do that. It's just not realistic, and most seasoned competitive shooters do cross their legs once they move left to right or right to left for a good reason. Also, track your time, evaluate what's working well for you here. Obviously, we need metrics on both accuracy and time, otherwise, how are you going to know if you're doing things well or not, and if you're improving or not? And carefully study where your sight picture starts to fall apart. Your sight picture will tell you basically everything you need to know about shooting. So once you start to see your sight picture get a little shaky or just lose it entirely, stop there, try to isolate that movement, and just repeat over and over again to work it out so that you're smoother and smoother so that you can maintain that sight picture so that you can engage targets on demand. Ultimately, we're just trying to get ourselves moving at whatever pace we need to engage targets while moving in any direction. Moving on, let's talk about walking forward. And in order to do that, all we're going to need to do is rotate that stick, that line, 90 degrees, and you're just going to start with your toes behind it, and you're simply going to walk over it. Should be pretty obvious, but yeah, same course of fire. You start on one target, 2 shots, transition to the second, 4 shots, back to the original, for 2 shots, for 4 shots on each. Alternate which target you start on, because again, we want to work on our transitions, moving left and right to left while we do this. But this part generally I found is a lot easier. Walking forward is definitely easier than side to side for me. Probably is for you too. Use a simple heel to toe movement. Again, try to work as smoothly as you can. Start whenever you feel comfortable. Don't get too hung up on starting when the beeper goes off and moving at the same time. If you got to, like I found personally, engage that first target, then start moving while you're engaging the second target, finishing on the other side of the line, transitioning back to the original target. Again, you're going to want to push yourself so that you ultimately are starting your movement as soon as you possibly can in this drill, but don't get too hung up on it. If it's really defeating all of your hope and crushing your dreams, then, again, work at your pace. Eliminate one target again if you absolutely need to. Also, obviously, alternate between the 2 targets. Start out left to right to left. Make sure that you got your target transitions down in both directions, because they probably will feel different when you are moving, and whichever foot starts off is going to be up to you. Personally, I like to actually start moving the opposite foot from the target that I'm starting with, but I also am still playing around with this. Ultimately, you should be able to start with either foot moving forward and just try to push yourself again, but also don't be afraid to slow down as needed. The idea here is just keeping your sights on the target as you move again. That's all we're ultimately trying to do. So again, isolate what parts make your sight picture shaky and just really try to slowly take all that stuff apart, troubleshoot it, run through simple movements until you refine your sight picture, and then start pushing yourself up to speed. Now, one thing I should really mention here that's important is that you should be practicing this between all the weapon platforms that you intend to actually train with. I found that practicing this between handguns and long guns is a night and day difference. They're very different animals altogether. I found that the weight in front of me, despite all the contact points with a long gun, actually still makes it harder for me to maintain a steady sight picture, as it would be to just be holding a gun floating freely in front of me with my hands. So definitely try these things out. Make sure that you're covering all your bases, experiment. You'll definitely notice that different sighting systems and optics will probably be a factor as well. And the weight of your gun, everything really translates a lot more into movement here. There's a lot more physical dimensions and physics in general at play here. So try everything out and make sure that you got your bases covered. Moving on, let's introduce a little bit of barrier work into this because that really helps you coordinate your leg movement with your sight picture, and creating a visual barrier here is going to make timing really an important factor. Now to do this, you're going to start out again with 2 targets. It could be 1 if you're not feeling the target transition thing and want to really break this stuff down further, but 2 targets is recommended. Set yourself up at some distance that you're comfortable engaging them from, and they can be, again, as close or far apart as you wish. It just depends on how much target transition distance you want to have. And at that range that you want to engage them from, set up a target stand with just some blank cardboard or a target on it. It doesn't matter, it just needs to be a visual block in front of you and between those 2 targets. Now to start this drill, you're going to start probably maybe 5 to 6 paces laterally away from the barrier. That's all you really need in my experience. You can definitely go further if you want to get some extra cardio in, but again, you're going to want to get this stuff down to its basics in short, easy, repeatable steps. We're not working on cardio here, we're just working on movement, and we want to be able to drill this stuff over and over again so we can quickly refine it. So I found starting 5 to 6 paces laterally away from the barrier is good, and you're just going to start your shot timer, and you're just going to run at the beep towards that barrier. As you get to the barrier, you're going to want to get your weapon sights up so that you acquire a good sight picture and start to slow down a lot as you start to approach the threshold on the other side of the barrier. Once you start to cross over, you're going to start to see that first target, engage it as soon as you can with 2 shots, and then you're going to move slightly further across that threshold until you see the second target, and again, put 2 shots in it. Very simple. Obviously, alternate sides as you do this. And don't hug the barrier because, yeah, you're gonna get your weapon sights messed up and you're not gonna have your gun up at the right time, and it's gonna completely disrupt what you're trying to do. And that's a good habit to build anyway. But this is gonna really challenge you to figure out how you coordinate your speed, where you put your gas, where you put your brakes, because you're probably gonna overshoot this barrier a lot when you first start out, and I sure do. And yeah, you're not trying to just jump on the other side of the barrier as quick as possible. You're trying to actually just engage these targets as efficiently as possible as soon as they present themselves. So slow yourself down so that you get a steady sight picture, and then start to really pop up those shots at those targets as you transition from the first to the second. And so those are the drills. This is really basic stuff, but it's also really challenging stuff, and probably most shooters aren't really good at it. And myself included, I have a lot of improvement to make here. It is definitely a thing that I've struggled with, and I am seeing improvement slowly but surely. So don't get discouraged if this is hard for you, because it is hard. It's very basic, but it's very hard. And I think that's very important. It's important for us to tackle this stuff if we are trying to shoot dynamically for whatever reason. That could be defense, that could be competition, or anything in between. It's just a very fundamental thing, but it's a thing that a lot of people take for granted, and it's a thing that's a lot more challenging than it really looks. So give it a shot, try it out. There's so much more that you can do with footwork. There's more advanced courses of fire, moving between different barriers and lanes of fire in different directions. Yeah, you can run a USPSA course, and you're going to be very humbled if it's your first time probably, but you know, we want to work on the basics probably before we get there, or at the very least, work on the basics so that we can advance in our shooting and our moving. So hopefully this stuff was useful for you. I really hope it got some gears turning in people's heads about how they even approach dynamic movement. I'm sure most shooters out there aren't really actually working on this stuff, and I think it's nice, it's important, and it's a good skill to have, especially if you're doing dynamic shooting. So if you found this stuff useful, please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell too. Also, if you got your own tips and tricks about moving and shooting, I would love to hear in the comments below, so don't be shy, chime in. And as always, huge thank you to all my supporters on Patreon. You make this channel possible. I could not do any of this without you. It is not cheap. It is a huge time suck, and it definitely does not pay like a job normally would for the amount of time and resources I put into it. So anything that you can help out with is really greatly appreciated. If you want to go help out, you can always go to patreon.com/tacticalgf. The biggest contributors are named at the end of the video. And so that's all the footwork fundamentals I got for you today. I really appreciate you all tuning in. Please be good to each other out there. And as always, please take care. Bye!